Joining me now, I want to bring in the chair of the Council of Economic Advisors, Stephen Miran. Stephen, first of all, I read somewhere where you said the reason for using trade deficits to measure reciprocity here was that it was perhaps the best way to measure cheating. This has been a point of debate since last night. Explain to the audience the thought process here.
Sure. Thanks for having me. It's great to see you again. So the president has long been focused on bilateral trade deficits, and the president decided that the cumulative trade deficits the United States has been running over recent decades are a national emergency. So in order to address those trade deficits, we have to respond with tariff rates, and the president decided that we'd have different tariff rates for every country. So the question is, how do you measure the extent to which other countries keep our exports out of their markets? Now, it's complex because tariff rates are straightforward, but there's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of regulations, rules, currency policies, intellectual property theft, market access requirements, and other things that allow other countries to keep our exports out and avoid being reciprocal and fair in trade and prevent trade from balancing. Now, what the president decided to do was to settle on a method that used trade deficits to proxy for all of these different trade interventions, and that includes tariffs, non-tariff barriers, currency policies, currency manipulation, intellectual property theft. And when he made that decision, the White House staff calculated the tariffs that would be consistent with conceptualizing other countries' trade barriers as a single tariff rate, and that's pretty much what happened.
Yeah, and I love that you laid it out this way. I know there's a lot of hand-wringing over it, but the word I heard more than as much as tariffs in the last 2 months is uncertainty. Well, this is certainty. Whether you like it or not out there, we've got a blueprint. We know where the White House is coming from. But I also want to go to the origins of this with respect to the essay that you wrote last November, sort of what was the user's guide to restructuring the global trading system. And a lot of people believe this is part of the blueprint. And I want to just go through a couple of lines to get some feedback from you, because let's start with the dollar, for instance. A lot of pushback, the dollar being overvalued. Many pundits bristle when you suggest, or anyone suggests, that the dollar should be weaker. Explain this one to the audience. And is there a sweet spot for the dollar?
Yeah, sure. So let me be clear that, we're not following anything that I wrote in November that predated my nomination to the position I'm now in. The president is the one who decided that tariffs should be set in a reciprocal and fair manner that address the distortions in markets that other countries have used to prevent our products from entering their markets. It's nothing that I wrote out. It's the president's ideas. With respect to the dollar, I don't think that there's anything sort of surreptitious or untoward going on there. The president is focused on tariffs. He couldn't have been clearer that he's been focused on tariffs since he got into office, and that remains to be the focus of the entire team.
All right. And also, though, in the paper, and in this particular essay, you did say that tariffs don't have to be inflationary. Explain that.
Yeah, so the reason why I don't think tariffs are inflationary at all is because traditional economic analysis, what economists call incidence analysis, argues that the more inflexible party bears the burden of any policy, whether it's a tariff, a tax, a subsidy, anything at all. And we're very flexible. We can substitute into home production. We can substitute among different exporting countries, whereas other countries are much more inflexible because they've organized their entire economies around exporting to the American consumer. There is no substitute for the American consumer. That gives us the leverage and means that ultimately, in the long run, they'll bear the burden of the tax. What that means is no material price increases for Americans in the long run.
Now, you did note, and many people have, that manufacturing employment, obviously, overall, as a percentage of employment and overall employment has come down dramatically. The question, though, many have is why the focus for the administration on manufacturing when it feels like robots are doing all the work anyway?
Yeah, so manufacturing is important for a couple of reasons. One, it's important for economic purposes because the manufacturing jobs are good jobs, they're high-paying jobs, they're solid jobs, and in addition to that, manufacturing creates real knowledge spillovers that accelerate innovation. This is something that economists call industrial ecologies and agglomeration effects. Now, manufacturing is also super important for national security purposes, right? We have trouble, supplying others who are fighting wars in other parts of the world right now. Should we run into a real national security threat, we need to be absolutely sure that we have the industrial capacity to defend ourselves. That means our industrial base has to be sufficiently healthy and sufficiently deep that we can produce whatever war material we need should we need it.
Globalists are wondering why anyone would fret that the U.S. is losing. We're 26% of the global GDP. We're only 4% of global population. Now, we'll note that it wasn't long ago we were 40% of global GDP, so we're certainly heading in the wrong direction. But they say, why not enjoy where we are?
Yeah, so look, I mean, I think the example from COVID is really instructive. During COVID, we were reliant on China for, sort of for medical equipment, for protective gear, for medical workers, for things like face masks and the pharmaceutical supply chain that fed into the vaccines that we produced. All of that supply chain was reliant in one way or another on China, and that was an emergency. And if China had been more hostile at that point, we wouldn't have had any of it. Right? And now imagine a real conflict with China develops and that supply chain goes away. You need to be able to be sure from a security perspective that things that are absolutely critical to the functioning of the economy in an emergency can be produced here.
I want to get back, though, to the notion that this may be anti-capitalism, right? A lot of folks say, for instance, Forbes just came out with the billionaire list, over 3,000. More and more come from different countries outside of the United States, that we should be proud of that we should take it as a badge of courage. Is there some way, though, to argue that the ascent of all of these other places, to some degree, is coming at the expense of Americans?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think you have to go back to the argument for why globalization was allowed to grow in such a manner to begin with. And if you think back to the Democrats, the Clinton administration letting China into the WTO, we were told that we'd have lots of cheap goods because China can, sort of bring prices down. But then, if you look at real wages, what happened is they pretty much went sideways for 14 years. So any advances that we made from cheaper goods, were offset by lack of growth in real incomes. And that led to stagnation for consumers, even in the price of cheaper goods. And that's very substantial. So we have to sort of sit back and say, okay, what did we really get from globalization? What are the real costs that it's imposing on us and the risks that it's imposing on us, given the changing national security landscape, and then reevaluate the entire program.
All right, so let's fast forward to where we are now. Obviously, there's some saber rattling out there. I want to get your thoughts because April 9th could be a long ways from here, right? I know there's got to be negotiations going on. What do you think will happen? More retaliation, or should we expect some of these countries to come forward and offer make offers of free trade, a real fair trade?
Well, I'll tell you, I certainly hope they do. The president's been clear that retaliation can be met with even higher tariff rates. So my advice to any foreign leaders, if of interest, would be take a breath, don't retaliate. Instead, we should recognize that President Trump is famous for his negotiation skills, and he's someone who's been able to create deals where nobody else thought they were even possible. Time and again, he pulls a deal out of a hat, and it's and nobody thought it could be done. So my advice to anyone would be, sort of. Think about what you can offer America that would persuade President Trump. He will ultimately be the one making those decisions.
And before I let you go, there's this sort of talk out there that the administration is trying for what they call autarky, which is sort of where a country is insulated. They do everything for themselves inside their own borders, and then they sort of point at North Korea as being an example of this. And obviously, I think it's really dumb to even sort of compare us to North Korea, but. The bottom line, would the message from the administration be that you do embrace trade, you just want it to be free and fair?
Yeah, that would be my message, is that we want free and fair and reciprocal trade. And if other countries had taken the opportunity of recent decades or even recent years to improve the terms that they offer American companies and American products and started to rectify their trade balances, none of this need have happened, right? They have had plenty of opportunities to open their markets and do the right thing, and time after time they refuse and they don't do it. So I would say that we're not opposed to trade in principle, but we do want fair trade. We do want reciprocal trade. We want other countries to treat us how we treat them. And that's what the president's tariffs are aimed at. Yeah,
and again, my mom used to call that the golden rule. Stephen, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.